situation or a case, so that it becomes very hands-on and discussion can be quick. Because in compact case, what the thing is, in compact case the word itself suggests compact, but we don't need to compress the data. Rather, the thing is, we can develop a central protagonist, a lead case, the leader or the lead character. Around that lead character, if we are designing a story and we are focusing only on that particular decision, it helps to directly reach to a specific management dilemma. So it means the role of protagonist will be very very clear in that case. So this is how we can talk about a compact case. So simply, if I talk about the secret to a great compact case, isn't it is just being a short, but it is being very very focused. Will I'll let you through a sample of the compact case where we can relate all these things, so you'll be getting the better idea. So if I'll talk about why compact case? So as we already talked about that in this fast-paced world, we have already abundant of resources in terms of information, data. Then this compact case will be very very time efficient. It will also engage the audience specifically, because when a case reaches to more number of pages or more data or more analysis, then to keep the audience on a center page and to have maximum attention, it becomes very very difficult. So the compact case helps you to engage the audience to a center point within a limited time zone. So if I'll mainly brief you about a structure along with, I'll draw you towards the sample of the case. But if I'll talk about the structure, no, how the compact case look like. So definitely compact case, or the beauty of compact case, starts with hook. Now when we are to say the first component, hook, hook is specifically the initial para or the initial line which immediately grabs the attention of the audience. So, in the first line or in the first para, the readers will actually have the idea what the case is all about. So, that is the main highlight of the hook. Now, when we are trying to say hook, I'll definitely relate you with the case. But when we are talking about hook, it has to be related with the background. So, when we are talking about the second component, which is background, the era with which we have started in the initial line, it means how we started that compact case. We need to again get them slowly to the background, that how it started, what is the main uh, idea behind this initial lines. So probably a basics about that company, or basics about industry, or what situation or what issues draw towards this. So either when we are relating to background, it's also highlight the problem of the case also. Then we'll talk about the data and decision point. Meanwhile, if I'll connect you with my case, I hope my slide is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I hope you guys can see that is a case by a very profound lady, Rebecca Morris. She developed this compact case. The title, if you read, sorry, no Kanadas, balancing food with integrity and growth at Chipotle. So if you see this initial para, now when I'm talking about initial para, this is the line that says, sorry, no Kanadas. Due to supply constraints, we are currently unable to serve a responsibly raised pork. Now this introductory line, this is known as hook. So when you're developing a compact case, this hook matters a lot, because this initial line on this initial para will immediately grab you towards the attention, and you will get the attention that what exactly they are talking about, or in which line, in which direction this case will take us. And specifically, if we see from students' point of view also, we generally we say no, वो initial attention लेने की ज़रूरत है. जैसे वो initial attention आ गया, immediately they'll involved into the case discussion. So when we start with this hook, you can see how they have developed this. When if you again go with this para, when we are talking about after hook, we are talking about a background. Now this is the background which talks about that when this company started. The company started with The main idea that whenever you start with this, whenever you start with this, it specifically talks about what the industry is, when it started, and what is the main purpose. Like here, they are trying to say that this company is value driven. Their main principle is they don't want to, rather you can say, sacrifice, or they simply wants to be very very value driven. So this title of this case specifically talks about that whether the company is focusing on integrity or whether the company wants to focus on growth. So this hook and background will automatically make the reader understand that why the compact case requires to be very very focused. So here your main problem starts. The idea related to food integrity where the company is talking about. Now another beauty if I'll talk about of compact case is about using infographics, because as we said that this requires a very very limited but relevant data. Now when you're talking about limited but relevant data, the best way to represent is to using infographics. So this is the best way. And as we are already having a multiple resources in terms of AI tools, we can wonderfully present our limited but relevant data because visuals always grab more attention. So this is what this infographics using the limited data that will help the compact case to be very very rich, because generally believe that case always requires abundance of data, abundance of information to make the audience understand that what the case is always wants to talk about. But this is how we can put this area. So if you can see the things which is required now, what are the consumer surveys, how the growth is going on, what are the facts, along with that their sales, along in terms of their segmentation. So there are the few very very important details which is especially highlighted by this infographics. So when we are specifically highlighting the compact case, it is very very important that we start with hook, we directly take them to the background what the company is all about, then we present the problem through a limited or relevant data which we can use through infographics. Even I have seen many many publishers, they also support and encourage ideas which is through the cartoons too. Like people develop entire story, and through that storytelling they can have that imaginative role. It is presented in terms of comic way, and that is how, just by putting visuals, just by putting characters, just by putting that rules, without writing a single line, just by visuals you can entirely tell the story. So this is the compact case. Now when we are talking about the decision point, so definitely when we'll go again, see if you can see this. Now it comes to decision point. By identifying data, by looking at the background, now this compact case wants to highlight that where the case writer or the developer wants, or it probably a reader needs to, that ultimately what answer we are looking for or what question need to be answered through this case. So the decision point. So this actually highlights that whether a company wants to choose growth, it means a short-term sales or short-term revenue, short-term profit they want to focus, or whether company they want to stick only and only with their core values. So what the company needs to choose between that. So all this data representation, all the background that helps you to identify to reach to this particular decision point. So here they talks about that what the story that Chipotle want to continue, and in terms of specifically how they develop or how they put this question to the audience so that they actually come to know that this is what we need to answer. So by looking at this case, probably this is hardly 1400 word case, this entire Chipotle case. Definitely will be sharing this resources with the participants also, those who are interested. But by looking at this case, we can specifically identify that it always, see, being an author or being a writer, it is always difficult because it is always a controversial. The person who wants to write a case, they always feel that whatever I'll add, It is always limited. Let's add more so that reader will get more comprehensive knowledge. But when we think from reader's point of view, even we, not as a student, we as a readers also, it is always difficult to have a continuous attention span almost for 15, 20, 25 minutes, or to read 20, 25 pages at a stretch. So it is very very difficult. So that's why, to keep that discussion very very concrete, to grab the attention of the readers, and to talk about the very very specific or a single decision point, compact case is always a hands-on approach. So by looking at that only, if we again relate with specifically the difference, I hope my slides are visible.
Yes, ma'am.
So here how we can highlight this. Now when we are talking about a traditional case and if we are talking about a compact case, word limit will be definitely different. Traditional case will always be between 3,000 to 10,000 words, or probably 10,000 plus words, and compact case will always be between 800 to 1,500 words. When we are talking about a traditional case, they try to highlight multiple issues, multiple theories, multiple perspective, while compact case is very very focused with a single decision point, as we relate with Chipotle case, that they simply wants you focus whether to choose between the values or whether to go with a short-term profit. Now what comes when we develop this? So traditional case have a very high or layered analysis because it is backed up by multiple or data, multiple analysis. Now, compact case requires very, very focused analysis where you do need to highlight all the issues. You just need to focus on specifics. So you need to present only those data which helps you to find out that single decision. So Chipotle wants to highlight that what was the scenario during that span of time where they actually faced this problem with suppliers, that when they were not ready to follow the welfare standards. So at that point of time, probably other issues faced by Chipotle may not be highlighted in the case. It will always focus only on that particular decision area. So when we use this traditional case in the class, generally it takes 60, 90 minutes, or even we need multiple sessions to discuss that. But for quick discussion, compact case can be done within 20 to 40 minutes. If we talk about the background aspect, traditional case always require extensive organizational and contextual detail, while compact case will have very, very limited, but as I said, relevant and essential context. As I said, traditional case, student engagement will be very, very deep. And see here, when we are talking these differences, it doesn't mean that compact case is much better, because specifically even in this time, if we talk about, there are cricket lovers who specifically love test matches. There are cricket lovers who love one day international, and there are cricket lovers who love also 2020. So it's simply about your choice or viewpoint. So there are people who love to deal with, write, publish, and discuss traditional cases. And this we need to understand that in this AI and fast paced world, we need something so that we can have the attention of audience or the students with very very interactive and in a fast pace. So in that sense, I'm trying to create a difference between traditional case and compact case, though I have written the case and this traditional case and published with the AMRAD itself. There are working cases in terms of compact cases, but yes, when we are talking about creating compact cases, it is difficult to create because, as I said, being a writer, you always need more data to be presented, more analysis to be presented, so readers will have more detail. But to make them in a very compact version, it is somewhat difficult, specifically for writers. So you need a very very quick and single point decision focus areas when you develop a compact case. If I'll again identify a very important role of compact case also compact case will also comes up with a teaching note. Now when we are talking about teaching note, specifically to the people who are new to the case writing or probably this case area, teaching note is always a supportive material to the cases, because this is what it is also known as instruction manual. When the case is being published, teaching note is also being published, but this teaching note will help the person who is discussing that case to the audience or to the class, and with what purpose, what is the background of this case, that entire detail will be presented in teaching note, which starts with the objectives. What is the ultimate objectives behind developing this case? So generally in traditional case we have 4 to 5 detailed objectives which highlights the main issues, but in compact case maximum 2 or 3 objectives are sufficient, because you are talking about a single focus discussion point. That is where the discussion start with. Now when you're developing questions in this compact case version of sorry, teaching note version of compact case, the question needs to be also very relevant and very specific. So when we are talking about the components of this objective questions analysis and teaching plan, again I want you to go with this case itself. I hope my slide again is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So in this teaching note, if you can see, it starts with synopsis part. Now when we are saying synopsis, it's specifically what the case is talking about, and along with this target audience. Now see if you can see this learning objectives. They are very specific, and they simply talks about only 3 objectives, where their focus is only on the issues, that whether the company wants to be ready to trade off between their values, sustainability and growth. Along with that, they want to continue their competitive advantage, and mainly what helps them to come up with this trade off. It means to stick to the core values. What are the pros and cons to stick to the growth? What are the pros and cons? So this specific objective will help the instructors or the person who is delivering a case to understand that what are the issues we can highlight, or for what purpose this case has been developed. Along with, if you see the discussion questions, so the first question start with what has made Chipotle successful to date. So when we highlighted the background, somehow through that we are trying to develop this question. Now see, when we are developing the question also, it is also very important for the person who is designing or writing a compact case, that we need to have some of the very strong theoretical concepts into our mind. It means what is the subject matter that I want to draw. So if we are talking about in a broad sense, if with this case is mainly highlighting about supply chain management. So it means being a writer, I'm very clear that I want to highlight some of the issues, I want to highlight some of the areas, I want to highlight some of the concepts which is related to supply chain management. So when I'm designing my objectives, when I'm designing my questions, it has to be directed with that particular theoretical concept. So if I'm talking about that, whether this chipotle will create a competitive advantage and will it be sustainable in the future, so definitely the answer of this particular question will draw towards, again with our discussions which we represented through our infographics, where we highlighted how this food chain came into the highlight along in terms of their competitors, along with what kind of substantial drop in the sales or in terms of revenue when specifically some of their suppliers with relate to carnitas, they didn't follow these welfare standards. So this specific question will help you to draw towards. So the thing is, when we develop this question, so being a reader, first it is very important to understand that before reaching to the answer, it is very important for me to understand the question first, because if the question is very clear, it will be very helpful to come out with their answer. So being a writer, being the author, being a case developer, it is our duty that when we develop this teaching note, we design the questions based on what answers that can be developed by the readers. So these theoretical concepts, if that are being very clear, very what we can say, conceptually we have designed it, integrated in our main era of case, it will be very helpful for the readers to come up with. And if we go with the third question, it's also, you're at the end, you are putting the ball in the court of the reader. What should Chipotle do? So this is where the out of box thinking comes, because you are allowing them to open multiple areas. That if this can is the problem, and if you are probably the supply chain manager or the sales manager in that particular area, this is how the situation is. Now you being at that role, how will you go ahead with this problem, what can be. So there can be n number of alternatives which comes during this discussion, and that is what the beauty of the case is, that it always open the doors for multiple alternatives which are possible, multiple alternative solutions which are possible to reach to the conclusion. And again, the instructor manual or the teaching note also comes up with the answers. So this is how you develop the answers of each question. So if you can see, I hope you identify there are four aspects of the VRIO framework. Now, when we are talking about the VRIO framework, we know that this is very, very crucial theory which can help the people to understand that what actually we are talking about. So, through this teaching note, the instructor becomes very, very clear that how to represent this case with what theory, with what area, with what problems, and specifically what are the initial questions to put in the mind of students or readers so that they can develop multiple alternatives with respect to this framework. So specifically in class, if I want to teach this concept, so a compact case will becomes a hands-on approach to me, rather to go with simply a version of theory and telling them these are the areas of VRIO framework. Better to have them this hands-on approach to compact case. Another very important thing I want to highlight over here is, if you talk about very, very important tables. Now when we specifically highlight the important areas which makes your case very, very rich, and specifically from publisher point of view also, it becomes very, very crucial so that it gets published. Definitely we always uh, accept, we should always welcome the suggestions and reviews from the side of reviewers. But yes, if you want to have your case in a very, very published form, always put more data into table formats. It means your exhibits needs to be very, very strong. The tables, the charts, the figures, the data, if it is always sourced, if it is always highlighted in the form of certain clear visuals, certain specific areas, it grabs the attention of the readers. Because only paragraphs or only points or bullet points probably may not have that attention which the attention people seek through tables, figures, charts, and data. So the exhibits which always we can talk about a very important area of case which supports the evidences of whatever data, whatever information you have put in your case. So this exhibits plays a very, very crucial role when you are trying to develop your teaching note. So this exhibits help all the readers, even the developers, to identify the main case that you want to put on. Now, very, very important part, if I'll talk about, here you can see this. See, I'll also lead you towards the important platforms which are accepting and promoting the compact cases. But before that, every individual publisher have different way of different format of accepting compact case or even teaching case, and specifically of teaching note also. The thing is, if you want to make your teaching note, now people do have those who are beginners, they may say that it probably easy or probably somehow they can manage to write the cases, but when it comes to teaching note, it becomes difficult for them how to. So here some specific activities have also been suggested, that if you want to really engage the people, just have a role play. So from the case, you people allow people, you have to enact this situation, you choose a role and you enact. If you are in that situation, how will be doing. So through cases you can also promote role plays among students, which becomes a very, very effective, very, very engaging. And the main problem or the main discussion point that you want to draw, among the audience that can be clearly led by them only. So this is specifically the beauty of, again, suggested things like here the YouTube links have been also suggested, that for this case if you want to read some other details or the supportive data, so it is also mentioned over here. And definitely the epilogue part. So if I'll specifically talk about the teaching note, so we have highlighted how to draw objectives needs to be very very limited, like rather to have 4 or 5 detailed objectives, stick to 2 3 specific objectives, same very specific 2 to 3 questions related to that, what analysis you can present in terms of tables, charts, figures, and your teaching plan. You want to go ahead with case study, you want to go ahead with role play, you want to go with any other activities you want to relate with, and how will you put this case into, like you in teaching plan also you need to highlight whether this case can be discussed in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And when you are talking about 15 minutes, that 15 minutes actually covers what, so that will be added into teaching plan. So as I said, you always start with specific decision, as I said, what conceptual area you want to highlight, avoid extra details specifically, be very very focused in case of compact cases, and to be very very realistic. So as I said, there are different platforms which helps to write and publish. Definitely EMCS is there. They have altogether a special area to focus on compact cases as well as teaching cases. There is a case center, a very large repository for teaching cases. Harvard Business Publishing is also there, which also have a wonderful written cases, IV Publishing, as well as Sage Business Cases. So that is specifically from my side. I hope I made it clear what the compact case is. Now, if I simply want to put it in one line, I simply want to say that compact case is something that rather to declare a full blown out war, let's do surgical strike. And that is what the compact case is. Definitely to the audience, if you have any insights, any discussions, any inferences from your side. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chandni, for sharing your valuable insights on compact cases. Okay, so your perspectives have provided us with a clearer understanding, madam, and we truly appreciate your engaging session and the knowledge you have imparted, ma'am. Okay, moving on to our next expert, Professor Virginia. Uh, Good morning, madam.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really
Yeah.
happy to be here.
We are honored, ma'am. So to all the participants, I would just take 2 minutes to introduce ma'am to everybody. So our next topic is going to be what gets desk rejected and why. So an editor's view on pedagogical case submissions. So it is my honor to introduce you. Professor Virginia is the Seth Corey Chair of Leadership Studies and the head of the Department of Management, Strategy and Entrepreneurship at the American University of Sharjah, UAE. She is also the editor-in-chief of Emerald Emerging Market Case Studies and an award-winning case writer. Her research focuses on corporate leadership, governance, and strategic management across diverse organizational contexts. She has published extensively in leading academic journals and is actively engaged in executive education, consulting, and scholarly service at an international level. Madam, we welcome you all and welcome you and requesting you to take it forward, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I would just need to figure out if it works for me to share the slides. If not, you have them too, so you would be able to help me in case it doesn't work.
Sure, ma'am.
Documents. Just a second. The screen share. Should be okay now. I think so, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much. Good morning, wherever you are. I think mostly in India. Some of us are spread around the world, so I hope you're doing fine. Thank you so much for this invitation. It's my pleasure to be here. I would like to talk today about what gets desk rejected, and basically to share my editorial view on pedagogical case submission. Obviously, I bring together with my heart the beautiful collection that we are working on and we are editing. This is the collection of case studies published by Emerald, which is Emerald Emerging Markets Case Studies. So EMCS, or I like to put double E, EE. So why? It can be also about emerging economies, right? Emerging markets, depending on the definition. So EEMCS. So let's start from the very beginning. It's very important for the authors to understand what to do and what not to do. So what would be the purpose of my session today? Is to walk you through the submission requirements to help you understand what you should not do and what you should do if you are interested in submitting to our journal. I always highlight to the authors that journals are living systems, just like humans, just like science, just like the world, right? So journals evolve. Their scopes evolve sometime, yeah, depending on what is going on outside, depending on repositioning, strategic repositioning. They also evolve in terms of what they're interested in, what they are not interested in, right? So, and also based on the competition that is around. So there are several journals, you mentioned, the previous speaker mentioned about the several journals that are available there for the case authors to submit. Right? So there is competition, but also it's very important to know how each of those case publishing journals differ and what is the specific value proposition that they can offer to the authors, but also to those who would like to use cases published in those specific journals in their teaching activities. So my purpose today is going to be to help the authors avoid common pitfalls when they prepare their case for submission to our journal, Emerald Emerging Markets Case Studies, right? And make sure that they can submit with confidence. They'll pass the stage of desk rejection. It is important to know, because many authors sometimes when they write me back, they're saying, oh, this rejection, this is really impossible. I've never got that, and I published several cases. Again, I remind them, journals are living systems. Standards typically do not decrease, but rather increase, right? And we are all authors and we know about this challenge. It becomes more and more difficult to publish quality work in top journals. Competition is high. AI changed the landscape. And we also try to educate all together as scientific academic community, as the community of publishers, to educate all the authors, all the users, all of us, scholars and writers, about the ethical use of AI, right? Because it can be misused and it can end up in being something unethical, which we do not want to fall in. So, what kind of elements under this purpose that I just put under that umbrella is to understand the submission requirements for our journal, which is fundamental. Learn how to prepare a very compliant case package, right? The one that you need to submit to the journal. There is not only one document that you have to submit, there are several. And it's very important to be comprehensive, because if something is missing, what happens? The editorial assistant goes through those, something is missing, the assistant writes back to the authors, unsubmits the case. It's not even desk rejection, it's unsubmitting, which is also frustrating. Why? Because it's getting to the author's attention, the fact that they really didn't read with attention what are the requirements for submission, and it delays the entire process. It's frustrating for us because it's time consuming, but also it's frustrating for the authors, and we would like to avoid that. So it's very important to know what are the documents that you need to prepare when you would like to submit cases to us. Another thing, I'll try to help you to identify the common mistakes, mostly also in the content of the case, in the content of the teaching note, something that is part of, I call this case writing conventions, right? Case writing conventions. Those are conventions that you cannot avoid. Those are standards. Similar to when we talk about academic writing, write research articles, there are elements that must be there. If you're writing a quantitative article, methods should be there, literature review should be there, and the results should be there. So conventions. The same thing in the community of pedagogical case writers, we do have conventions and we cannot really bypass them. Another thing, a bit of a view on editorial view on the journal and also the expectations that I have when I would like to, when I see the cases that are being submitted and the cases that I would like being published, because it talks about the prestige of publishing, the better are the cases, the more interesting the cases are, the more relevant they are for today's world, the more it speaks to the quality of the journal and more prestigious it is for the authors to publish in the journal, and more prestigious it is to use the cases from the journal in teaching activities, right? So it's a virtuous circle. So we reinforce every single step in the process, and it helps us to elevate the prestige of the journal, and also for us, it's very important for our careers to be able to publish in a prestigious journal. And finally, the resources that we have a lot of resources. The help is plentiful on the website, and sometimes the authors just don't, go over those resources, guidelines that are easily available to authors, and they can really access them and then make their life easier. At the same time, make sure that they do not miss any important requirement for submission. Okay, so those are more or less the aspects that I would like to cover during the presentation today. So starting from the very beginning, I think everybody who is here already knows that, but surprisingly, we still maybe 5–10% still today we get cases that are not pedagogical cases. So it's very important to, again, read the scope of the journal and understand what type of journal is that, and not submit case studies which are qualitative research case articles, right? And we know this is qualitative research with maybe sometimes multiple case studies, comparative case studies, and all this, which is not something that we publish. So we publish exclusively teaching pedagogical case studies, right? Not research, which is qualitative, because that is requiring a completely different approach. We do not publish any simulation or any exercises, because we do sometimes have people who submit just quantitative exercise, deprived from theory, deprived from context. It's just a simulation, and that's it. It's not what we publish. So this is something which is dry, devoid of context, and we do not publish something like that. We don't say this is not useful, no, but it's just not what the journal publishes. So it's very important to know that. We do not publish, industry reports that you just take from secondary data somewhere available, reshuffle, recombine, and boom, you submit it. No, it's not what we publish, so please be aware there are many of case studies that are submitted to us, drawing exclusively on secondary data, which seem like industry reports, like a report on a company, that like you have annual report of a company on the website. So something reshuffled like that without any decision making, without any subjective feelings and thinking of protagonists, of people around the decision. So it's not something that will be published in it was never published, will never be published, because we are looking at something else, something different, and I will highlight that very much today. Obviously, the teaching case, we also need, and it's a requirement, you need to have with your submission the teaching notes. I'll highlight again the documents that are supposed to be submitted when you submit the case to us. So accompanied by teaching notes, definitely. And in the teaching notes, we have to know that teaching notes are not published, are not in public access. And why? Obviously, for students not to be able to access them, because if there are other instructors around the world, and this is the case, who want to use our cases, the cases published in the journal. So only them, they do make a request through the site, their affiliation to an institution and their teaching professorial role is being verified before the teaching note is sent or shared with the requesting instructor or professor. So this is important to know. We try our best to prevent compromising the access to the teaching notes by students, because it will compromise also the discussion quality, the depth of analysis in the classroom when this case study is being discussed. Good, moving on. What type of cases then? So what you need to make sure you have when you write your case and when you submit, you target us as a target outlet for the publication of your journal. So this, if you tick the boxes on the several elements that I'm gonna highlight here on what type of cases are published by Emerald Emerging Markets case studies, you will make sure that you do not have, at least at the beginning, the desk rejection, right? So those elements have to be there. Then if they are not present, it goes back to you, right? If they are there, so we give you a chance. So we open and we start analyzing more in details, and then we evaluate. But if those elements are not present, that it's not something that will successfully end up in publication. It needs to be modified. So in the title, and sometimes this is also confusing to some, but in the title of our journal, we said, and that's why I told you at the beginning, I'd like sometimes to put EMCS, right? So because some people allude to, and they say there are differences between emerging economies and emerging markets, right? So if you want to play with that, we can play emerging economies, emerging markets, case studies, right? But the first one, obviously, is about Emerald. So it's the publisher which publishes the journal. So we have in the title the word emerging, right? Emerging markets. So what we publish, we are interested, really, and that was why the journal was created in the first place, long time ago, is to give the opportunity to the authors from the Global South, in particular, to make their work more accessible to everybody around the world, be it in the Global North, when they teach their courses about companies located in Global South, but they do not have cases to illustrate the challenges that those companies face in the Global South. So this is one for those in Global North to get access to knowledge, to cases, to companies, to situations, to dilemmas that we face in the Global South, and also to make the possibility of publishing more accessible to authors located in the Global South, right? To make it more accessible, to understand the challenges, and try to approach these through a developmental standpoint. So emerging, it means that we publish only cases which deal with emerging market companies. Mostly, you maybe write about a company which is located, this is mostly in an emerging market, right, country, or it can be maybe a company from developed market entering a country which is located in this emerging market, and there is discussion about all the challenges of establishing the company, opening a new subsidiary in that emerging market. So the perspective should be always the one which would enrich our understanding of emerging market challenges, right? So please, this is very important. Now, there is a discussion, and this is again maybe a point to what I just said before, and I'm keeping an eye on my watch, right? So discussion that I had before about that journals are living systems. So even emerging markets are living systems, right? So we had a case about South Korea Korea. Before, on most of the rankings, South Korea was in that group of emerging markets. Now it moved, right? And it's not anymore an emerging market. So that's why cases which deal purely with South Korean companies would not be accepted because it's not an emerging market any longer, right? So I put a list here so people can, we set the most updated now, which gives a comprehensive list of emerging markets so that the authors can really see that. It's the one by IMF. So it's easily accessible and public access, but also I put the link here so that we can see. I expect very soon, I'm located in the United Arab Emirates, the GCC countries, they're still in emerging markets. I expect soon they'll move out of that list. So if you still have cases about those countries, speed up, right, and submit the cases to us as soon as possible because they might evolve and they might get in another classification. Okay, real companies and real people. I'm aware about the time, so maybe I'll speed up a little bit. So we are publishing cases on real company, real data, that's for sure. We are not publishing on fictitious cases, right? On fictitious, let's say, fictitious situations. It has to be something that really happened, that is really occurring or occurred in the recent past, and definitely that is not invented, right? Dilemma-driven cases, that's another thing which is fundamental. We do not publish just, credit about how wonderful the company is. This is great. This is also free marketing for the company. That's okay. Companies are paying very, very heavy money for marketing, right? But remember, we have an educational journal, so we want to learn. Of course, we can learn from success stories, but our emphasis is always to put the student to face a dilemma. So the cases should be dilemma driven, and those dilemmas should open actually the whole case when you write it in the opening paragraphs. That dilemma should be written, presented in a way that it's clear from the very beginning. And the case in itself should lead to a discussion, but where you write in a style where you don't point the students to one solution. There might be a lot of solution, and the whole purpose of this case is to discuss and to see how the reality, how the best solution according to the discussion emerges from the rich discussion that we have in the classroom. Okay, after, what else? Very important. Again, journals evolve. Our emphasis now is to publish on situations, on events in the case study, which happened in the recent past. And we are now in 2026. So if you are working right now and considering to submit during 2026, so dilemma should be, it doesn't mean you cannot refer to the past. Yes, but dilemma. So that's the point from which you start writing. That's your dilemma, right? And then you can go backwards to refer to the past, to bring in the story eventually, if it's relevant, to the description of the situation in the case. But dilemma should not be older than 2-3 years maximum. So if you submit by 26, so dilemma definitely should be around somewhere 24, 25, maybe 26, right? But not very older than that. This is very important element. Timely dilemmas which are worth solving. Sometimes we just receive cases which are just repeating the same. They are used, overused and abused, as we say. Some topics which there are too many things, too many cases that were published on that. Maybe they don't bring any additional educational value at some point. It's not maybe unique context, unique company, unique situation, right? So it's interesting for us also to bring something new to our readership and to our users. So it's very important to really think when you start writing a case, is that a question that I'm pursuing worth solving? Is it interesting? It is relevant? Is it going to attract the students' interest and attention? Definitely cases have to be related to a course, right? And mostly we say 1, 2, 3, but not more. So they are mostly supposed to be related to 1, 2 maximum courses, but mostly 1. Why if you put it in 2, 3 different courses, it's going to be very difficult for you to identify the learning objectives that you define there. And because different courses have different positioning to the material that is being taught, theories that are being taught and covered there. So it's very important that the case highlights, illustrates a theoretical concepts that you would like to reinforce through that case. And in many situations, this is the problem that we face too. We find the cases which are submitted to us and which are without any theory at all, right? It's like opinion piece. It's like something that I believe, and I don't need to take any course in a business school, in a whatever subject that you are teaching, right? I don't need to take it. It's just say I read and I give my opinion. So what's the purpose? What is the educational value then? When we would like to actually reinforce students' understanding of the theory we teach in class, of the concept, of the models, through the cases in an engaging and lively manner. Right? What else? Because what I mentioned before, it's important that we bring and convey the voices of people, protagonists in the case. So it's not that we are not publishing cases which are purely based on secondary data, but even in that secondary data, if you're using sometimes newspapers, articles, there are even some quotation that exist in those articles, which allow you to bring the voice of the protagonist through different quotations of their, speeches sometimes, of their dilemmas, of their thinking. And that's what we say, make the protagonist or people speak, right? Make that case live, like lively even, so that students really engage with the case, and protagonists, they're being really taken into that dilemma, and they feel that as if they were protagonists and as if they were to really make a decision. So this makes the case more engaging to our stakeholders. I alluded to that before. It has to be written in a way that it opens up to the discussion in the classroom, where everybody is free to bring their thinking, to capitalize on the knowledge from the class, to provide different solutions. So the writing should be done in a way that it leads to different possible pathways, and not like pointing to one single solution, which is obviously a reality of our lives. It's almost not the case. Context is something which is important. So that's why I said we don't publish the simulation, the dry numbers, calculations, and all this. It's good, but that's what makes the collection different from others. We want to have the context, the richness of this, even a subjective world of thinking, of psychological doubts that our protagonists have when they really engage or embark in these dilemmas that they face in the workplace. So context means you should bring in sufficient information to the students to be able to answer the questions that you ask on the case. What else? We have, and this is important. This is, I think I overheard the previous presenter, so about what kind of writing tips, and I also have some tips at the end about writing. It's important that you engage the reader in the case, and the narrative case writing is very important. So it's not like fact stating, like a report, as I said, but more a narrative style of writing, a storytelling type of technique that should be used, which is engaging, which really takes us into the story, makes us live those events in a very nice way, and which engages also us with that story, and then which puts us in the place of the protagonist. So it's important that, and we, again, so many times, but I think here we have already, or maybe we have novice case writers, so it's very important. That's why I highlight here, it's very important that the case is written in the past tense. I know the parts in the case, there are authors, I come back to them and I say, please, past tense. And then I write second time. And then I write the third one in capital letters because it's just sometimes really annoying to repeat it many times and the authors just don't listen. This is part of the conventions that I said. So it's very important to understand that the case entirely, in its entirety, has to be written in the past tense. And sometimes we use future in the past tense, right? Particularly when we allude to the decision, but it's decision to be taken, but it's already in the past, because by the time the case is published, all this dilemma is a bit in the past. That's why we insist on this past to be recent when you submit the case to us, even considering the time of the review, that by the time you submit, it's already a bit older than our time to which we engage in with peer reviewers, right, to invite them. It takes time. So past tense. And why I'm laughing here, because I see that the authors respond to my feedback and then they revise it, and then they change almost the entire case in past tense, but they still keep some sections in present, and mostly they keep that the section when it relates to a country, right? Because they say, okay, the company is located in that country, and then there is this industry in that country, and then they introduce a section about that. And it seems weird, and I agree. But if you are, I agree if you are a novice case writer, but if you are already a very well versed case writer, so it sounds well to your ear, right? But when you have to write, India was a country which something, so it seems weird. I agree with you, right, Wes? Because India is, right, and many other things. But yes, it's still written in the past, because India was 2 years ago like that. Now it is different. So maybe what we are writing 2 years ago about India, about any country, right? It was real too, it was the reality 2 years ago, but not anymore right now, because countries are living systems, right? And they change. So another thing, structure, and this is part of the convention too. So the structure, and here we are and that's part of this, what will get you that's rejected, right? We start the case, and this is our case, it's our structure, not our other journals, but our structure. We want to see the dilemma from the very beginning. So there is an opening paragraph, I call it opening paragraph, but it can be 2, 3, but not 2 pages long. This is typically 2, 3 paragraphs long opening. And that opening typically is without any heading at all. We don't write introduction like in a research article. No, we don't do that. We go directly by writing the story. In those 2, 3 paragraphs, there are conventions. One, there is typically no dilemma. No heading, no heading. Dilemma has to be there. In a way, how you write in those 2, 3, it has to be there. The name of the protagonist, the key person who is supposed to take the decision, right, is there. So the name and the role in the company. So even the company has to be mentioned, and the role, like that person, John Smith, the CEO of United Constructed in India, this, right? And fundamental, we need to see the date of the dilemma. We don't insist on 24th of March 2025, no, but month and year. So month and year has to be there. And obviously the city and the country. All this has to be in those 2, 3 opening paragraphs. It is a must, right? So typically no heading, dilemma must be there. Protagonist name, role, company name has to be there. Then the date, month, and year of the dilemma, and where the events are happening, the city and the country, right? So this is part of the conventions. And then you write the entire case after this opening, right? It's part of where you write the dilemma, write the whole context. And after that, you finish with the same dilemma at the end, right? But written in a different way. Obviously, it's not a copy paste, but it's kind of you are closing the loop. Very good. My question, how many to organize? How many minutes do I have more? So that I know how much to leave for Q&As.
Ma'am, you can take your time completely. It's
Okay,
all
I can
yours.
take, perfect. I can highlight, so very good. I can highlight in details what I need. Perfect, thank you so much. Okay, Teaching notes. Teaching notes, maybe the previous also speaker alluded to that or explained, but I'll explain here too. So the teaching notes have to identify exactly where the case is to be used. One specific course or very few, as I explained before, because we need to think about learning objectives. Target audience, particularly, sometimes authors write, I'm going to use undergraduate, graduate, executive education, yellow, put everything there, right? No, please, no. Why? Because it's not realistic. The sophistication or difficulty of learning outcomes here are going to be completely different. You cannot expect the same type of learning, the same sophistication from executive education audience compared to undergrad student, right? So that's why, please, focused understanding of how sophisticated you want that case to be, and you want these questions to be, and how much of a depth of analysis you can expect from your audience. Okay, learning outcomes here. Because of this positioning that you have, they really have to be aligned with the difficulty. And you already heard, I'm sure, about Bloom, that's the best, I would say, way to map the content of the case and also the sophistication that you want to give to that case with the audience. If you say it's very difficult, it requires a lot of even sometimes experience, managerial experience. So it's definitely for executive education audience, people with experience, with sometimes 10 years of experience, to be able to answer those questions. So questions have to be very high in the level of expectation and analysis that you have from them. And that's why when we write clear learning outcomes, they have to be based on Bloom's taxonomy. And that's the one where actually we have already ideas of verbs. And what is important, I mentioned here, the verbs have to be measurable. Measurable because many times I see the authors, and it's true that it's taking time, it's demanding. Sometimes it's frustrating to send it back just because of one verb, but it seems that we are just, paying attention to superficial things, but it's not superficial because we are talking about measuring things, right? Because we are educators, teachers, we know. And if we create or write a learning objective which really reads as understand this. How would you measure understanding of that? The whole thing for us educators, teachers, professors in the classroom is to really understand how to measure the understanding of our students, of the concepts that we teach them, right? And how to do that. So by writing the verb understand, you don't really help the other, professors or instructors who'd like to use your case. So here you have a wealth of ideas and cases, right? The verbs that you can use in order to really build very solid, clear learning outcomes. And obviously it goes from lower level outcomes to higher level in sophistication. And it tells us if we want them to just remember, repeat things, here you have the verbs. If you want them just to understand, it's here. If you want them to apply, here. Analyze here, evaluate here, and create. That's the most sophisticated one. Designing a change plan, a plan of intervention, something like that. So it's very for the top level of students we get, maybe executive MBA students, right? You'll design some learning outcomes which will be using those verbs here in this red color at the top, right? Those are the ideas you can use. Assignment questions have to be linked to learning outcomes, right? Sometimes the questions are all over the place. And that's why many times we recommend now to use a mapping table, right? Where we have the questions, and then on the other side, we show to which learning outcomes those questions are related. So it's such a useful mind mapping maybe, and also which we ask to include in the teaching note, because it allows really the professor to structure the thinking, right, in a way that it's clear that all the questions are related to the learning outcomes and obviously to the content of the case. It's very important to include the teaching plan also and to show exactly and even strategy and application, when, how the case to be used, after what content, how you plan to use it, different teaching boards that appear there that should be supporting the instructors who would like to use your case. Theory, theory, theory. When I say theory, there should be reinforcement of the, of a specific theory, theoretical frameworks, models, concepts, which we really recommend authors to have a section there in the teaching note to say this is basically what the case is all about and what kind of theory and frameworks this case reinforces. And then obviously in the sample answers that you provide to the questions, you have to mobilize those theories, those concepts, right? It's not just merely to say that the case allows to do that. You have to mobilize and use them in order to provide those sample answers. And then follow a given structure. Also, there are different sections and there is a logical, sequence in those different sections to create a logical connectivity between the sections, so that whoever is using that can know how it flows and can also easily refer, because they know when it should appear, mostly after this and that. So you can easily refer to that part or section of the teaching note. So structure is important, right? So it's also part of that convention in the teaching notes. Next, the structure that I just alluded to. So that is the convention, right? Mostly that's the flow that we have in the teaching note. And then if you have those different sections, you'll never meet them. What is interesting also, and again, if you were to download some of the cases that we published maybe 5 years ago, right? You would not eventually see some of those sections. The author will come back to me and write when I request something, when associate editors are requesting something, and I say, I published already some cases and I was never requested to do that. Sometimes, I have a laugh to myself because I'm saying, try to, send an email like that to an editor of academic management journal, right? And to say, oh, you're asking me to add this, right? So I would like to tell all the authors, those are the conventions. You don't really discuss this because it is what we are doing. It is how we believe we will help the community of case writers and also community of instructors and educators when they use our cases to enhance the value of the learning through those cases. So you would see that maybe some of those did not exist, but now they do exist because there is a reason behind that. And then, of course, I don't have time to elaborate on that here, but I do present the sequence of the different sections that have to be present. And maybe, so case synopsis, target audience, learning outcomes. This is the section that will be maybe surprising to some who didn't publish recently in our collection. Recently, I mean last 2-3 years, because that's from the last 2-3 years. Methods of data collection and analysis. So we don't write the method section like reliability, validity, and qualitative research that we do, right? It's different, but we do write a section on methods. How did we build the case? Where did we take the information from? When we held the interviews with this and that, when we did it, how we combined the data. So this speaks to the transparency of our data, of the things, of real events that occurred, and this gives more credibility to the case. Then teaching plan with board, with approaches that you're using there, theories that you are reinforcing, suggested readings for case preparation. There are some authors who are not even including that. List of assignment questions on the case, sample answers. Those are not one paragraph, those are detailed sample answers to assignment questions. Epilogue, where you really talk about what happened, because if your dilemma is 2 years old and you wrote the case in the third year, right, and you submitted to us, you might know already, you got in touch maybe with protagonists and you know what happened in reality. So it is always interesting to know what happened in reality, because students then asking you, Professor, we discussed so many options, but do you know in reality what kind of decision the managers took? And then it's always very nice to let them know about that. And then the references. Sometimes you mobilize references in the teaching note that you need to refer to and acknowledge. Like maybe you say it's going to be this theory that I'm going to reinforce. It's not part of preparation for the case in terms of readings, required readings, but it's part of the information that you or material that you refer to while writing your teaching notes. So please include those references at the end. Emerald, you can find this also because we are talking a lot about AI and AI usage. So Emerald has a very detailed, and it applies to all the journals published by Emerald. So it's mostly the publisher. It's not a specific isolated journal or under the umbrella of the publisher that decides upon that. No, it's a common policy that is made at the publisher's level. And then here you have an example, and there is also a link for you to access to see what is considered as being ethical use of AI and what is not ethical, right? So here you have some examples of if you create the content, if you create the writing, this is not allowed. It's just something that obviously anyone can ask AI, and then you have full article in a matter of seconds. And obviously it will generate just training AI to do things which are even sometimes nonsense, right? So copy editing, it is allowed, particularly with the attention to global south. We know that it's expensive sometimes to use really advanced, professional help with that. So I think AI made the life simpler for those for whom English is not their mother tongue, and there is always a possibility to check whether the writing is good. And I would even advise against, if you're using AI for checking the language quality, I advise against uploading the entire case or the entire piece of writing that you have in one shot. What does it mean? You're feeding the AI so that the next time somebody is asking something, so it will generate and it will copy something from you that at the end of the day it will seem that somebody will publish using your idea before you've done so. I advise you against that. If you have one sentence, one maybe short paragraph, maybe sometimes you want I would say, synonym to something that is more, I would say you would be more confident about what you do, right? But here again, you have something that is a very good guide for you so that you don't, doubt and you don't stress whether, what I'm doing with AI, is it ethical, not ethical? So here you have up till today, what is the latest policy on AI use. Now, about submission, and this is important. We have several documents or files that we require when you submit to us, to emerging markets case studies. So there are as many as 4, right? So one document which is required, obviously, it's our case study. The second one is the teaching notes. So those are separate files. They're not put together. They are on separate file. Title page. We have a template for the title page. I'll present it here. It is available on our website. And then consent to publish. So the release form, there is a template. So your protagonist has to sign that publication release form for us to make sure that there is no potential problems or issue with that. So you can use the template in order to ask the protagonist, the person from the company, to sign that consent to publish. There is a template. I'll show it in the next slide. There are optional files. For instance, if you have tables, figures, images which are beyond anything essential, like maybe appendices which you believe are essential, but not as essential as the tables that you really embed at the end of your case. So you put them there. But if there are some tables, like we have tables for the teaching note, for teaching boards. Those should go in the teaching note document, right? Those are really more kind of appendices which are not so essential, and you might put them separately. And then if you use the third-party documentation, things that you that are already published, you need to get the permission from them to reproduce that. So you need that third-party copyright permission to reuse something. If it's a picture, if it's something that they have a model or something there, you have to have this permission. But if you don't use that, it's not obviously required. Okay, the 4 compulsory ones. Now, I said we have a template. You see here, title page template, and this is how it looks like, right? And again, we have this template on the website of the journal. So it is there. You can upload it, and then you fill it in according to those different headings that you see. Then I said there is publication release form. Again, it's a template. We have it on the website. You can go there, download it, but that's how it looks like. Pretty simple, right? But again, it has to be there. We will not proceed. We will return your submission back to you if this or one of the 4 is missing, right? It has publication release form in particular has to be there because it gives us confidence that the authors will not run into trouble if they publish something and then the company reads about some contentious issues and the name of the company, everything is there available, and then you didn't receive the consent from the company or the people involved about whom you are writing the case, you might get into trouble. So it's very important this form is signed. We have a wealth of resources which are available on the website, and that's again very important. Like anytime when we submit something to a journal, we always look at the scope, right, of the journal, what they publish, what they don't, also requirements, right? We had the previous speaker talking about compact cases. So compact cases, we said it should be around not more than really 2,000, sometimes they say 3,000 words, depending if you put appendices, right? In a normal case, normal length case, so standard case, 5,000 to 6,000, 7,000 words. We don't want it way too long to either. We know students today don't read as much, and even this one they'll put somebody to summarize it by AI. So that's why it's very interesting for us to engage in this narrative storytelling writing, so that we invite them to read the entire case, right? So, but again, we have a very nice collection of different support material that exists on our website. So I really encourage the authors to go through them. Even novice writers, sometimes they don't want to co-author at the beginning when they start the first time. It's very difficult. So, and there is just as much you can do for authors. You cannot give them a training on case writing through the feedback. You tell them what they need to do, but some just don't have the right skills yet or preparation yet to write according to the expectations. So one strategy I always advise, one strategy, try to co-author with experienced case writer to learn, and then you can go alone, right, if you want to, or definitely try to access all the guidelines, all the documents, supporting documents that we have in order to help you to work on that. Access our most recent cases, right? Always, when you want to see how to publish and what standards the journal is expecting today, you are looking the last 1 year, not really 20 years ago, right? Even in the top journals, which ours is, right? Top journal, case journal, right? The top, the journals in the research field, right? Your field of expertise, you will see that if you go 20 years ago, you read those articles, you say, today this article would never be published in its journal. Why? Well, because again, science evolves. The thinking, the theories, the sophistication even of methods and analysis evolves and becomes even more elevated. So accessing the collection and looking at the cases from the past 1 year, it's the best for you as a benchmark to see more or less what is the standard and what we are looking at. But again, this is the wealth of collection elements together with the guidelines that we have on the website, and I strongly encourage our prospective authors to go online and see and consult those different guidelines. Now, maybe as a closure, the submission tips and advice that I would like to give to the authors, right, which is essential. So I'll go with the mostly bullet points. Definitely check all that we have right on the website. So submission requirements, if you didn't attend this session, but I don't know if you'll hear maybe later on, but please, all the authors, it's a typical procedure that we have. Check the journal website, look at the submission requirements, right? In any other journal, you'd be rejected even if the length of your article is too long, right? So it goes back to, so the same here, there are essential conventions. Follow those requirements to the letter when I say, because it will avoid us and you frustration, right? Because if it's something which is missing, something which is not there, something, it will delay back and forth, and it delays the whole process, and it leads to frustration. And believe me, I'm an author myself, I know very well. And I'm eager to help the authors to facilitate the process, to make it faster. And believe me, in many cases, the collection, I have full-time job, full-time things, and I'm editing the journal. And just because I know how eager the authors are, because I'm an author myself, I end up working on it every single day as if it is my full-time job, just to, let me see if I can go, if there are some cases closer to acceptance, let me do it faster, let me to just speed up the process, because there are so many stakeholders in the middle that it takes us to some delays, because there are many steps in the process, and we all know, because this is the case of all the journals, be it case journals or research journals. Pay attention to the formatting of your files. The case is in one, Times New Roman 12, then another one, the teaching Arial 15. It's all messy, it's clumsy, it's not academic, it's not professional. No, please, just something which looks really nice and professional and neat and organized. This is also predisposes, and I think in all journals we get this feedback from the editors, predisposes well that a proper attention is given to that. Quality of the language, professional copy editors, I mentioned that this is typical, but AI now helps a lot, right? So you can do that. Pay attention to details, so meaning organize your files carefully, right? Again, this attention to guidelines, attention to formatting, attention to presentation, it's very important. And another thing, we still get this, and I kind of, again, I can guess I'm a scholar myself, and too, it's sometimes when different people are writing different things, and even the students are involved there. So please be careful here. Sometimes I see that the case is anonymized, but the teaching note is not. Right? And it's exactly this teaching note was written by this and that. And no matter how much, but behind every journal, there are people, right? And sometimes it gets to my desk already close to acceptance. Can you imagine this? Because we are human, and there is that much that we can, screening, sometimes you just go through. Sometimes it is caught right away, and we send it back. We try to really be more careful and more attentive to that, but it's also author's responsibility. Remember, this is a blind peer review for now. I don't know how the world of publishing will evolve. We already have open reviews where the identity is disclosed of both reviewers and the authors. So this is another version that we are thinking in the future that can evolve in the publishing world, but I'm not talking right now. Right now we have a blind peer reviewing, so you don't know the reviewers, they don't know the authors, right? So please do anonymize your submission. No authors' names should be in the teaching note and in the case study. And many times I do advise you to ask for feedback from your peers. So just if a colleague who is an experienced one in case writing, so ask the colleague to read, maybe in zigzag, maybe if there is no time, but just to give an advice, that is always helpful. Now, the tips and those ones I'll go through very, very, very fast, right? Because I'm sure you already know them with the previous sessions that you had. But this is my advice for the case to be engaging, for your teaching note to really tick the box for everything. So, engaging writing style. So, don't bore the readers, right? Make sure that it is engaging, it is narrative, and it is having a catchy focus, like the topic is really important, is timely, and the issues discussed are topical. Produce decision-driven cases, so it's dilemma that I mentioned before. I advise to pretest the case in the classroom. Many times students are the best, are the best feedback providers, right? Because they are the ones who will read the case and who will analyze. And then while pretesting, you would see that maybe some issues can emerge and you can modify before submitting to the journal. Keep the connection, make sure that the teaching note speaks to the case speaks, then is connected to the teaching note, because many times there is this division. Case is one, teaching note is about something else. A teaching note, do not undermine and then underestimate even the importance of the teaching note. Many times teaching note is double the size or the length of the case study, right? As much of attention that you have to give to that. And then remember, dilemma of the case has to appear at the beginning and at the end, right? To close the loop that I mentioned at the beginning. Now, what you do not have to do not use present tense in case writing. So actually use the past tense, right? Do not write your case as a research article. As I said, again, we don't have a literature review section in our teaching case, please, right? There are some that still have literature review and they start putting all this section about what other authors said about this. No, this is not for the pedagogical, please. Do not use exclusively secondary data. Obviously, we do publish cases based on secondary data, but I'll be honest with you, it's very difficult you need to be a very skilled case writer to have a successful case using only secondary data. So I really advise you to always have primary data. I know why we are using secondary, because you don't really need a publication release form, but there are situations when, for instance, the writing, even though you use things from secondary data, still you put your writing inside, and sometimes it can allude to something that can seem defamatory for the company, right? So it's also creating some potential troubles and problems. So that's why it's very important that we make sure that when we write, we do have this publication release form, to make sure that we don't run into any trouble. Outdated material, concepts, and all this obviously doesn't make the case interesting. So I do encourage you to use really more up-to-date material, and then more up-to-date concepts, more up-to-date, theoretical frameworks to engage the students. Do not ignore the importance of teaching notes. Do not write fictitious cases. We are not publishing those. And do not focus on issues that are not worth solving, as I said before. And this brings me to the end of the presentation. So thank you so much. If you have any question, I know I'm aware I have only 2 minutes, but I really thank you for this invitation. I hope I managed to go through all essentials. You have the fundamentals of what is required when you go and you look forward to submit to our journal. And definitely we are encouraging you to submit to us and looking forward to your submission. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Participants, do we have any questions for ma'am? Mm. I guess we don't have any questions. I'm repeating. Do we have any questions?
That is fine, because
Ma'am,
I
we
took.
have questions in chat box.
the entire time for that. I am okay. Let's select please the most important ones because I'm sorry I have another meeting in 3 minutes. Right, I'll hop on another one. But let me address if you can read the most important ones. I'll address them quickly. 58. Okay.
Yeah. Ma'am, the question is, do we need to justify as why the author perspective, the respective market as emerging market?
No, you don't have to justify. You make sure, remember that list that I put in the slide, right? You just make sure that it's the company you're talking about, it's the focus of your case, is from one of those countries in that list. That's it. No, you don't have to justify because it's our, when we receive it, we look, it's India, it's Pakistan, it's the Morocco. So it's part of this emerging market group. Perfect. That's it. You don't justify that to us.
Okay, thank you, Meet ma'am. Thank you, Virginia ma'am, for the wonderful session. I would like to invite Professor Dr. Abhinav Singh, Director of CPIMR, to deliver the vote of thanks.
So, good morning to all of you. On behalf of the university and the CPIMR Case Center, I extend my sincere gratitude to you, Dr. Virginia Bodolika, for today's exceptionally insightful and practical session in the EEMCS case workshop series. Your perspective on why teaching cases get rejected, the gaps in the submissions, and the importance of a strong teaching note was truly eye-opening. Your emphasis on clarity of LOs, a compelling managerial dilemma, the rigor and the classroom applicability gave us all a very clear understanding of what makes high quality teaching cases publishable in emerging markets case studies. We deeply appreciate your openness, clarity, and generosity with which you have shared your editorial insights and experiences. I'm very confident that today's interaction with all of us will significantly benefit all of us in strengthening future case development efforts from our side. Thank you once again, Dr. Bodolika, for your valuable time, inspiring insights, and continued support to the global case research and teaching community. And let me also tell you very clearly that your excitement and passion for teaching cases is very evident, clearly evident, and it is extremely contagious. So, best wishes from all of us here. Thank you
Thank you
so much.
so much. Looking forward to your
Thank,
submissions. Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much.
All the
Thank you.
best.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to our next session, the last session of today's workshop, writing a teaching case and a teaching note, experience sharing. For that, we have Dr. Priyanka Shah, Director of PPSVG. I'll just take a minute to introduce you all. So Dr. Shah is having over 15 years of academic experience and 2 years of industry exposure. She holds a PhD in management and an MBA in marketing and has published extensively in reputed journals. Her research interests include advertising, branding, digital marketing, and sustainability. She brings a valuable blend of academic depth and industry insight to her work. Ma'am, we welcome you for this session and requesting you to take it forward.
Okay, thank you so much, Sakshi. I just hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you are.
All right, thank you so much. Good morning, one and all present, or rather present virtually. Um, as Sakshi's already introduced, I'm Priyanka. And after the session actually delivered by Professor Virginia, I mean, she actually took a very in-depth session on how to write teaching note and teaching cases, and what gets rejected, what gets accepted, what to take care, the tips that she shared. So it seems I will not go into detail about really what she's already covered. I'd rather share my experience on writing a particular case that I along with my co-authors published at EMCS. So we wrote it a couple of years back in 2023 probably, and it was published back then. All right, so let's start. Can I share my screen?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am,
ma'am.
you can.
All right, thanks. All right, so let's begin. So as I said, I'll be actually sharing my experience, but before we move on to before we jump onto this, I would definitely like to pay due credit to my co-authors, the ones who actually helped me in writing this particular case that we're going to discuss about, Dr. Subhashish Mitra and Dr. Anu Gupta. I mean, we actually worked as a team, and that is how we probably delivered this case. Also, the views that I'm going to share, because we've already had sessions on teaching notes and teaching cases, even in the past, earlier in this same edition as well. So I'm sorry if there's some repetition on my end, but I'll try to just express my personal views on how to really write a case. To be honest, I am still a beginner at writing cases. I mean, I have not written so many cases, but whatever little experience I have, I think I'll just probably share with you. All right. So, just probably we'll start by talking about why cases or why teaching cases really. So, I believe all of us are educators, and whenever we probably teach in the class, I've seen a sudden shift in the energy when we talk about cases. There's one challenge that we face while delivering or discussing cases in the class is if I am teaching at an undergraduate level, I can't really take a very long case. I can't really expect that they read and come. But at a PG level, I believe that problem is not around or that gets taken care of. So yes, very important that students read the case and come to the class prepared, which might not happen a lot of times, but still, I believe cases bring a certain energy to the class. It kind of shifts them to this debating mode and brings their ideas out. So that's why I probably love teaching through cases in the class. And teaching cases. We've had a lot of discussion on teaching cases. I think Dr. Chandni spoke about compact cases, and in the previous editions, my other learned professors also spoke about why write teaching cases. So, a very, briefly, what I believe is that when I discuss cases with the class, in the class with the students, it kind of helps them remember theories through these cases. So if I probably just directly teach them a theory, I kind of believe it doesn't land properly. Sometimes students are not interested in learning just theories. So this is one very important way I probably teach them certain theories. So where they remember through situations and through people. And rather than probably, asking them to, okay, explain this or explain so and so theory, explain so and so strategy, it's always good to present them something, present them a situation, present them a dilemma, and asking them to, answer that, okay, what would you do if you were in this particular case? So indirectly, we're actually teaching the theory, but probably making the student really think. And of course, it makes the classroom much more engaging and real. I mean, the students are definitely more active when we deliver the cases in the class or when we discuss the cases in the class. So yes, I am a fan of teaching cases, and wherever possible, I try to teach theories through cases. And I don't think this can be emphasized more. All right. Now, the next one or two slides, I'm going to talk about how do you spot cases, right? So when we started writing our case, our dilemma rather was ke kaise dhoonde? Like, how do we really find a very interesting case that can work well or that can really help students learn theories in the class? So, see, I believe all of us watch Netflix and our students definitely watch Netflix. So I believe rather than writing the case as a research paper or something, or as a book or as a paragraph, why not start with, a Netflix story, for example, or a Netflix episode. So, for example, somebody gets murdered in the first episode and then you unravel the mystery. So here exactly more or less the same thing happens. I mean, nobody gets murdered, but yes, there is a dilemma in the beginning of the case, and you hook the students onto the case, and then you probably unravel, okay, what happened and what is the dilemma, and you build the case slowly and uh, you know um, so okay, So let me, I think, shift to the case once. Let me just probably take you through what we had written and how did we identify, how did we build on the case. So this, I hope this screen is also visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. All right. So this is the case we wrote. Of course, I believe everybody who resides in Ahmedabad would know of Urban Shock. Who don't, all those who probably don't, it is a eatery actually, right? So this is a very organized kind of eatery, which probably evolved from something that we already know of, like the Manik Chowk, and this is a refined or a revised version of the same. And this trend started somewhere in the 2000s actually. So 2000 around 18 or 19. So that is when we thought, okay, let us just pick up this trend and let us write something about this. This was a new trend back then. So protagonist here is Mr. Kartikeya Rajput. So, as I said, you usually start writing the case like you write a story. So this here, we actually started writing the case by describing that it's a lazy Sunday morning and Mr. Kartikeya Rajput is taking a sip of coffee. And then he gets tensed when he reads in the paper that there's a new food park coming up in Ahmedabad. Of course, a new food park means more competition. And how would he really save his own food park? So that is where we start writing the case. So, probably this helps in hooking the students to the case and then they want to know more. So this is where we actually started. Now, again, shuffling or shifting back to the presentation. So, what we looked for is, these are the things that we looked for when we were wanting to write a case. So here we have a clear decision maker, and so this is the protagonist in our case. That is Kartikeya Rajput. We are not talking about the company here, but we are talking about this one person who is an entrepreneur and who is really a food lover and who is invested in this business. So this person is our decision maker. Then, okay, then the second thing probably we look at is what are the options, of course, he has. Because it's a real business, because it's a real situation, of course, there are going to be multiple options, right? And I can't, of course, show any option as a very perfect option because otherwise it comes out to be the only option in the case. So then here we have multiple options, multiple strategies that can work out. For example, one option was that, okay, should we really expand only in Ahmedabad, or should we really expand to Surat, which is also a place where people love to eat out, and street food is also very important there. Should we revise the vendor pricing, or should we let it be the same? Should we change our marketing strategy? So these were all the options that we had, and of course there were real consequences because I mean, Urban Chalk is still around, but at that point of time when we wrote the case, there were consequences. There were competition. There was a lot of competition, which was kind of springing up, and there were a lot of people who were trying to copy this model of Urban Chalk. And we were really worried. I mean, not we, but the people at Urban Chalk were really worried that, okay, we lose footfall and our brand might get diluted because of XYZ things. So these were the real consequences. So I believe if you really want to spot a case or you want to write a case, these are the things that might help you, right? It has to be a real situation. It can be something contemporary which is going on right now. And there have to be multiple options, right? I mean, what can that protagonist do in that particular situation? So this might just help you identify or spot a case. Okay, and secondly, these were our triggers for writing the case. I mean, so my question is, okay, how do we really get case ideas? Where do we really get case ideas from? So people who are writing case for the first time or people who have not written a lot of cases would usually feel that, okay, kahan se laye hum? Ideas kahan se laye? So these worked as our triggers for the case that we had written back then. So there was a specific market shift happening, right? That was the trigger number one. So COVID had happened and it was a post-pandemic surge. People were really spending. And there were food parks that I said were springing up wherever there was space available in Ahmedabad and elsewhere. So a lot of competition came up. So there was a lot of mushrooming of, these food parks. Food parks is what we call them. Also, because we spoke to the protagonist, we spoke to Mr. Kartikeya Rajput, right? And okay, even he was very anxious back then that, okay, am I making a mistake? Do I really know my market that well? Should I expand in Ahmedabad? Should I have more food parks in Ahmedabad, or should I move elsewhere? Also, the pattern of how people eat out was changing back then. So Manek Chowk is still around, but still people were moving from, let's say, eating out or eating at a place like Manek Chowk to maybe, moving on to other places like where there were gaming zones, where there was a combination of entertainment and food, and where there was the comfort of AC. So this shift was also happening back then. And then, as I said, there was an internal conflict also that, okay, should we expand? Should we conserve? Should we wait for a while? So these kind of worked as triggers for our case. And this is what we incorporated in our case as well. All right. So now how do we really write a teaching case? I think enough has been spoken about writing a teaching case. So therefore, I will not be really going into the theoretical aspects of writing the case, but I'll rather take you through the case step by step. So the number one thing is, of course, we believed when we wrote the case that, okay, start with a moment, start with a story, start with a hook that, that kind of engages the readers. See, it's a teaching case, and the readers are, or the people who read the case are more or less going to be the students. So, and I mean, I think you'll empathize with me when I say that it is very difficult to hold attention span of students these days. So, a 10-page case, if you really want them to read and you want them to discuss, then I believe you will really have to start with a very strong case. So, when I say start with a, Netflix like episode, I really mean that way. All right. So again, going back to the case, this is really how we started. We really started with talking about how Kartikeya Rajput was concerned about his food park, and we kind of built the case around him. So pick up a moment, anything that you feel will really hook the audience, and probably incorporate and start with something like that. Also, if you can see here, we've kind of put certain thoughts, and we put certain things in an active voice. So there's going to be a tsunami of new players in this sector, and we need to be on our toes if we are to survive this tsunami. So this is what our Rajput's thoughts, and we've presented like he's actually speaking them. So in the entire case, that is what we've done. We have these quotes which are really spoken by Rajput, or we show as if they are really spoken by Rajput. Right. So this kind of gives a very nice feeling to the case that, okay, the protagonist is actually speaking with the readers. So that is the first step, I believe, that you start with a moment. Second is, and very important, we've introduced the protagonist here. So introduce the protagonist. And as I've already told you, in our case, the protagonist was Kartikeya Rajput, the owner of Urban Chalk, the one who really started Urban Chalk. So then the second thing is, make him real, make your protagonist relatable, build a personality of your protagonist, right? So yes, we spoke about how Mr. Rajput was, for example, he worked with Asian Paints, and then he moved on, and then he thought, okay, let me have something of my own, and how he loved food, and how he met his wife, future wife, Nikita, etc., etc. So we kind of built, an entire personality of this Mr. Rajput. So give your students, to something to visualize, or something to, really, okay, okay, this is Mr. Rajput. This is what he looks like. This is what he likes, for example. Right. So that is what we did. We made him relatable. We made him real. So that is the second step that we did. We introduced the protagonist, and we built his personality. All right. Now, the third step, which I'll talk about, is we kind of built the context that, okay, what are we going to talk about in the case? Now, exactly the context building. So here we started by talking about urban chalk, right? So as you can see here, our first part of the case introduces, talks about why is Mr. Rajput in dilemma? What is the problem? Second, we immediately shifted to, speaking or talking about what is urban chalk. And that is how we built the personality of this person, Mr. Kartikeya Rajput. Now, once we had done that, we moved on to speak about, or we moved on to write about street food actually, right? So here we've built the context that, okay, how has street food evolved around the world? So we've taken certain references from around the world, and we also spoke about how the eating out sector has evolved here in Ahmedabad. So Ahmedabad is always, I mean, people living in Ahmedabad, residing in Ahmedabad are usually fond of food, but how has that sector evolved? So yes, we did give a long, a long context of the eating out sector after we introduced urban chalk. So here, as you can see, there's here where we introduced the eating out sector, and we gave certain information, we gave certain data, right? We spoke about um, what cuisines are liked, what kind of restaurants are there in Ahmedabad, what are these food trucks and what are these food parks, etc., etc. So we kind of introduced everything here. We gave information here, and then we moved on to speaking about the business model of urban chalk. Okay, so here, as I said, we built the context slowly. So this is what we did. We spoke about how Manik Chalk was an inspiration for urban chalk. Sorry, for urban chalk. Yes. How what is the food culture of Ahmedabad? What are the various types of restaurants, or how food is looked around the world. So this is what we have done so far. We have started with a particular moment in time. We've introduced the protagonist, and we were slowly building the context. Now, once that is done, we moved on to talking about the business model, that is, that is urban chalk. What is the business model of urban chalk, and how has it been built? So this is where we spoke about the urban chalk business model, right? Now, for those of you probably who are aware or who went to urban chalk would have seen that, okay, there are multiple eateries. It's an organized space where there are multiple vendors, and you can go have food there. You can spend some good time there, and it's not just eating out, but you can actually sit there, spend some time with your friends, and you want to go back there because you like the experience of eating there, right? So that is exactly what Kartikeya Rajput kind of had envisioned, right? So there's not just food, but there's an area where there's entertainment as well. So, there could be a live music going on, or there could be some other activity going on. So that is what he had envisioned. So that is what we spoke about, that, okay, what is the business model? So there are vendors who set up shops in that area of urban chalk, and they pay certain rentals to Kartikeya Rajput, and that is how it kind of works, right? Now, the rest of the things are managed by the vendors itself, but the overall management remains of Kartikeya Rajput. So here, that is what we have done. We've built the business model. We've explained that in depth. As I said, we've kind of tried to have quotes wherever possible. So here also we've shown as if he was speaking to his wife Nikita, right? That what has he done? Why does he think that this park would be a success? So this is how we go. This is how we went ahead. This, I mean, I can share the case for you to read, but this is exactly where we are talking about that. What did he really want to build? So, for example, here he said something like, my 70% of business should come from the age group of 16 to 25. They should come to Urban Shop, not only to eat, but to hang out, chill, and above all, enjoy. So, yes, he was actually trying to sell an experience and not just food, right? And that is what we kind of wrote here. So moving on. So yes, we are still building the business model. We are still talking about the outlets. We are still talking about how was it managed. We spoke about parking problems. We spoke about what kind of vendors were there. Everything we spoke about in depth, right? So this is all where we talk about the business model of Urban Chalk. All right. So that's the step that we did. That is the fourth point. Explain the business model. Next is where we talk about adding complications, or rather collecting, or rather giving them some more evidence and data. So here now, so far the students have been introduced to the business model. So far the students have been introduced to the protagonist, but now you give them something that they can discuss in the class, right? So now you add complications, you introduce competition, You talk about what are the customer expectations. You talk about how can this urban chalk become a sustainable food park, right? So this is what we have done here. Now, I'll just add something. So here, yes, if you can see here, we've added that what were the who were the competitors really back then? So back then we kind of so what we did as case writers, we asked a couple of students, right? We asked them to actually go and collect some primary data. So they went to all possible food paths. They collected primary data on what are the different food paths, what all things do they serve at various food parks, and what was the perception of of customers for these various food parks. So this is something that we have collected. I'll just take you through certain exhibits here, and I'll come back to this. So yes, we did kind of collect primary study as well because we did not really have any information here. So it was our job to really get it or get it collected through whatever means we had. So here, these are the exhibits that show you that, okay, these are the lists, these are the outlets at Urban Chalk, right? And we also made the students probably find out that what were the footfalls on weekdays and on weekends, because that is what we wanted our students to discuss. We also made them find out by talking to these vendors that what was the turnover on weekdays and weekends. So yes, we had some data which was collected through primary survey, and this actually kind of strengthened our case as well. Also, along with this, what we did was if you can just see, I mean, I know it's a little difficult to see, but we also did this. We sent them to various food parks. We asked them that, okay, what was the model there, right? What was the rent that they were paying at these food parks? What kind of customers were coming there? What was the average spend per visit? And what were the reasons for visiting this place? So we had these 3 to 4 things that we kind of got collected for other food parks as well. So here we gave them, we gave our readers a very good idea of the competition. So we have almost 14 to 15 food parks where we sent our students, we collected all this data through uh, through the students that were involved with us. So these are the exhibits that we kind of worked on. So yes, we did collect primary data, and as I'm telling you very honestly, it kind of helped us strengthen our case because otherwise there was no data available here. Yes, there was no secondary data that we really worked on. So as I go back to the case now, this is what we did. We introduced the competition. We gave a lot of data that kind of strengthened the case, right? So just going back to this. So yes, we added complications. Complications in terms of course, who are the competitors, right? What do the customers expect? If there are so there were internal disagreements between, let's say, Rajput and his wife and other people who were managing Urban Chalk. That is also something that we added here. Lastly, and I think very important, is we create the dilemma. So of course, it's because it's a teaching case, you want the students to discuss things in the class, you don't really provide any solution here, right? You create a dilemma and you leave it at that. So here, if I just go back to the case, we kind of ended by talking about what challenges were faced by Urban Chalk. So that was the conclusion to our case that, okay, uh, Urban Chalk was doing well, but of course, with the same business model, we couldn't really do well in the future as well. When we spoke with the owner of Urban Chalk, we asked them, do you have data of your consumers? He said, no, we don't have. So then, it gave us a thought that, okay, can these people really survive in the future if they don't really have their customer data? We live in a digital age, etc., etc. So we probably jotted down all possible challenges that Urban Chalk could face, and that is what we put here in these challenges, right? So with other food parks mushrooming, how far can Urban Chalk really survive in this business? What can they do to differentiate themselves and all? So yes, our case ended with the challenges that Urban Chalk had actually faced, right? So as you can see here, that is what we've put. We've jotted down all possible issues. As I said, there was one issue of price control on the outlets. We've noted that down. And there were a lot of other issues which we put here. And then we ended our case on on a note where there was a dilemma. Okay, that what should this protagonist, Mr. Karthik Rajput, really do now? So that's it. I mean, that's the story that we built around Urban Chalk. We started with a protagonist. We built the story. We built the business model. We gave data. We gave evidence. We gave enough juice to the students to talk and discuss about in the class, right? And that is how we ended. So it's a fairly simple case that we kind of wrote here. And as I told you, here, of course, we have references because we collected, because, we've put certain things in the case which spoke about the world food market as well. Yes, so this is the case, right? And I've taken you entirely through the case along with the exhibits as well. So yes, that is where we end the case, but that is a very important point because now you want the student to really start thinking and probably discussing it in the class. So that's about writing a teaching case. Now let's just look at a couple of slides on how to really write a teaching note. Now, obviously, what follows logically to a teaching case is a teaching note. I'll take a couple of minutes to probably just talk about this. And I'll also take you through the teaching note that we have developed for this case. So yes, it's a guide for the instructors, of course, on how to teach the case or how to use the case in the class. The simple reason of writing a teaching note is, of course, because the case is not meant for research. The case is really meant for letting the students understand certain concepts in the class. So if I were to teach a theory in the class, I can teach through a case, right? So that is the idea. So whatever theories you want to teach the students in the class, you can just pick up cases which have those theories as teaching notes, right? And then you can just very easily and simply teach them in the class. Okay. So I again would insist that if all of us are teaching cases or discussing teaching cases in the class, please always refer to the teaching notes because that is how the author has perceived, that is how the author has meant for you to teach the students in the class. All right. Now, very simply, because as I said, you've already gone through the components of a teaching note earlier as well. So not going into the detail here, but I'll actually take you through the teaching note that we had prepared, right? So yes, of course, first of all, we will have a case synopsis. So yes. So going on to the teaching notes, it of course starts with a synopsis of the case for the instructor to understand the entire case from the writer's or the author's point of view. So yes, we had a case synopsis and we have objectives, right? So yes, here we have assignment questions along with the teaching objectives. So I have the teaching learning objectives. So for example, what does this case really teach the students? So here, for example, let's say this urban chalk case is going to help my students learn and understand comparative strategy, or they'll help them analyze business models or how to grow or evaluate growth decisions, for example. So these are the teaching or the learning objectives for my particular case. And also we write that who is the case really meant for? So the audience as well here, I think that is covered at the end of the case. So we usually mention the target audience. Who is that case really meant for? What kind of courses can you really teach or through this particular case? So that becomes easy for me as as a teacher to pick up cases. So for example, if I want to teach certain strategy in my class, I can pick up cases which actually teach strategy or which help me teach strategy in the class, right? So this case we had particularly written and we thought that, okay, this would be good for undergraduate and postgraduate students who probably, who have to be taught marketing and strategy courses. So it works for both these subjects. So teaching objectives followed by certain assignment questions, right? Very important here, because you are kind of helping the instructor to understand that, okay, what kind of questions can be asked based on the case, right? So this assignment questions are a help to the instructor. So we had kind of brought three questions here. First question spoke about growth opportunity. The second spoke about differentiation, that, okay, how can urban chalk differentiate because there were so many food parks around, and how can they really make themselves sustainable? and how to really retain the consumers and how to use technology, for example. So these are the three questions that we were really focusing on. Yes, we can give additional reading material. And a very important thing, the teaching plan. How do you really intend for the instructor to teach them, teach the case in the class? So this was our board plan for class discussion. So yes, we kind of had a 90 minutes board plan where introduction 5 minutes where we talk about the introduction. Then there was a discussion on opportunities, all the three questions actually. So there was a 25-minute discussion for all three questions. And for each question, we had identified certain theories that can be used to discuss those questions, right? And of course, last 10 minutes were reserved for the key learnings from the case. Yes, we have also mentioned the method, the data collection method here in the teaching note, because yes, we'd given some exhibits in the case. So we mentioned our methodology, that how did we really collect whatever data we collected. So, you can see here that the students went to the stall owners and they went to the customers and they asked them, they did really collect extensive primary data. So yes, we have a teaching plan, that is a board plan. For example, we have certain discussion questions as well. So that is what I probably took you through. Now, the analysis of assignment questions. So yes, we also probably write the answers in detail, but just to ensure that the instructor knows that what exactly went through your mind when you were probably shortlisting these assignment questions. So here the first question, which was strategic growth opportunities. Here we wanted to really cover this value innovation model because we thought that this would be a good model to teach them, right? The growth opportunities. We also took this Hambrick and Fredrickson strategy diamond because we thought this really went well with the kind of concept that we wanted to discuss. So yes, we gave a very elaborate answer by using these two models. Okay, that how does this strategy diamond also apply at Urban Chalk? So this becomes very specific. Now, moving on to the second question that we had. Yes, how can Urban Chalk differentiate itself and how can they really become a sustainable brand? So here we took the VRIO framework. I mean, if you would ask me that, okay, how do you really find out these frameworks, or what we really did when we were writing the case is that we kind of looked at a lot of strategy frameworks and then we thought, okay, this works better or this suits our case. And this framework is probably going to help students understand or discuss this case at length. So simply, I think that was the logic behind selecting these frameworks. So if you are writing your case or your teaching note, probably, that can be done. So what we thought is rather than just giving very simple subjective answers, why not include certain frameworks, which probably helps the case become much more objective and much more specific. So yes, we involve this VRIO framework. It's for value, rarity, inimitability, and organization. So yes, that was the second question. And third question, where we spoke about how can customers be retained and how can I really build the brand further, right? So here we also specifically picked up one model, which was the IDIC model for customer relationship management. So yes, this is the third model that we picked up, and we took or we actually very elaborately discussed that how does this apply to the Urban Chalk case, right? So that is what we did. Here we spoke about all four aspects of the IDIC model. So yes, that's it. That's a teaching note. And of course, it ends with, as I said, what is the level, what is the complexity level of this particular case? So yes, that's the end of my teaching note. So again, going back to this, these are the components which I believe you already know by now, because they have been probably shared a couple of times, right? And the end is, of course, you always give suggested answers, you guide the discussion. I mean, we don't give fixed answers, as in, yes, we do give answers, but then there can be multiple answers to the questions that you raised in the case, right? So yes, because we asked three questions, we had to give some answers which we felt were the best answers and which we felt were the best models to discuss on, right? But of course, The moment an instructor takes your case in the class, I think they would have their own interpretations as well. So yes, we don't just limit them. Yes, that's it from my end. We were So yes, I've spoken about how did we go through this entire thing of writing and writing the teaching note and the teaching case. To be very honest, that was the first teaching case and teaching note that we had written. And to wrap it up, yes, we did identify Mr. Kartikeya Rajput because it was a very, very nice, concept, okay, of eating out, a very simple concept, something the students will definitely relate to. I mean, a lot of students who reside here would have gone to Urban Chalk, and the moment you mention Urban Chalk, they'll be very excited. Okay, let's discuss this in the class, right? So that was one reason. We met Kartikeya Rajput a couple of times. We kind of tried to understand how is he, what is his personality, and we tried to bring it in the case, to just ensure that the case doesn't look like a research paper or, something which is very dull and boring. And we tried to probably bring something alive in the case by sharing certain quotes, by creating some suspense, by giving some dilemma. So yes, I think that is what we did. And this was a case which we sent to EMCS. And yes, there were a couple of revisions. We we submitted the revisions, and we were able to publish the case along with the teaching note. So I think that's it from my end. If there are any questions, I'm here.
Ma'am, there is already one question
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
chat box.
Okay, I'll just read it once. Enlighten us regarding editing the content. As a writer, we are too attached with the content we have written, how and when to edit. Yes. So I think it is by Shakti. Shakti, as I said, we were three people who were writing the case, and so that kind of really helps because if you write the case and if you edit the content, I think it is going to be a problem. But you probably read it repeatedly and you just try to find out, okay, what can be edited out and what can be included. You'll definitely be very attached to the case because वो आप ही लिख रहे हो. So I think the best way is to probably ask somebody else to read it for you and to tell you that, okay, what is required, what is not required, because they'll have a third person perspective, right? So I think that's the best way, according to me. Once they've given you their perspective, it is completely up to you whether you want to keep it or not. But yes, get some third person perspective as well, somebody who's not completely very attached to the case. That's it.
Thank you, Priyanka ma'am.
All right.
Yes. Thank you for this enriching session. I hope all the participants have gained knowledge and have, got the understanding of the teaching notes and your experience. So before the session ends, I would request everybody to please switch on their cameras, though we are not connected physically. So would like to take some snapshots virtually. Yeah.
I will also request all the participants to kindly enable your cameras to have a snapshot.
Thank you all. So as we come to the end of today's enriching sessions, I would like to take a moment to reflect on some of the key takeaways from this workshop. Today's discussions provided valuable insights into the art of developing impactful teaching cases understanding the expectations of reputed journals, and identifying the common reasons behind desk rejections. The experience sharing session also gave us practical guidance on writing effective teaching cases and teaching notes, which will certainly help all the participants in their academic and research journey. The workshop has truly been an excellent platform for learning, interaction, and knowledge exchange. So I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the speakers, facilitators for sharing their expertise, experiences, and valuable perspectives with us. Your guidance has been extremely inspiring. A special thanks to the organizers, coordinators, faculty members, and the entire support team whose efforts ensured the smooth conduct of this session. Most importantly, I sincerely thank all the participants for joining us today and patiently listening, engaging, and contributing throughout the session. Your enthusiasm and participation made this workshop meaningful and successful. We hope the learnings from today's session will support you in your future teaching, case writing, and publication endeavors. Thank you once again, everyone. Have a wonderful